Welcome, friends, to Breakfast in the Ruins, a Michael Moorcock-flavoured podcast. On this show, Tom Murphy is back to pick up the second part of our chat with Bryan Talbot about his work and influences, with a specific look at his lyrical and poetic psychogeographical masterpiece, Alice in Sunderland, the origins of the epic alternate history detective tales of Grandville, and the upcoming release of the Casebook of Stamford Hawkmoor. We also had a very special guest appearance from Dr Mary Talbot, where Tom and I had the opportunity to talk to both of the Talbots about their collaborations and what Mary is working on too. And to round things off, I had a chat with Bryan's webmaster, James Robertson, about technology, gaming, multiculturalism, whether you could beat a Nazi to death with a collected Grandville, spoiler, you could, and how, decades ago, he became the curator of Bryan's website, bryan-talbot.com. As this is a long one that overcame numerous technical issues, I'll leave the preamble there. So, pour yourself a glass of something tasty and join us. We're back at Derry and Toms again, and we're absolutely delighted. Tom and I are here, and we've got Bryan back for another dose of yakking about his work, his inspirations, what he's up to at the moment, and what he's got coming out very shortly, which is going to be off. Yeah, you said you're off on a signing tour in France for was it 12 days?
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm drinking, for reasons I won't go into, I'm drinking San Pellegrino Zero. I've not got any booze on me this evening, which is a shame, but you two can
Nice,
have a tipple for me. Yeah.
Yes, it's been published in France before Britain.
Yeah.
The main publisher is Jonathan Cape, but their edition only comes out in November. But they're allowing Delirium, who publish it in France, to do it because they've been promoting my work like hell. They've been doing a really good job over the last 3 years. They've been bringing out one of my graphic novels, starting with the first Grandville.
Yeah.
One every 6 months.
Right.
Yeah. So they're building up a momentum over there. It's great. It's had some fantastic reviews, Grandville.
Yeah.
And I'm over there for 12 days. It starts in Le Mans on, I think, the 9th September, which being launched there with a big exhibition, original artwork from about 15 pages from Granville, the rest from Hawkmoor. And then it goes off around the country. And then I'm back 4 days, and then I'm back in France for a literary festival, which is, I can't remember what it's called now. It's an Uchrony festival. It celebrates parallel world books.
Yeah.
And Grandville's won the award for the graphic novel category. So I'm actually there to promote the book at the festival and accept the award. Which is very good. And then I'm back for 3 or 4 days, and then it's Lakes Festival. So that's September stitched up for me, more or less.
Rock and roll lifestyle.
Yeah, fabulous. I mean, of course, for word to the wise or the unwise, the people who are perhaps listening who are Bryan Talbot fans who don't know what's coming out, but of course it's the Casebook of Stamford Hawkmoor. So let's go in reverse order, because I had some questions in my head, because I think before we finished up talking last time, we just touched on Alice in Sunderland, and I have got a few. I've got a few questions I want to ask you about Alice in Sunderland, but we're on Hawkmoor. So tell us about the Casebook of Stamford Hawkmoor, and of course you've mentioned Grandville. Which people, if you haven't read Grandville, the collected hardback volume. No, number one, it's fantastic. Number two, you could easily beat someone to death with it. So if you have any enemies, it actually serves a dual purpose. But I tell you what, let's talk about Grandville, because of course the Stamford Hawkmoor is a spin-off of Grandville, isn't it?
Well, he only appears. He appears in the last one, the 5th one, Force Majeure, which is the longest one.
Yeah,
and it's when LeBrock starts talking about his mentor, the guy who trained him up. So that's when we meet Stamford Hawkmoor as an Eagle.
Yeah.
and he's basically an homage to Sherlock Holmes. He's a different sort of character, but he wears a deer stalker, smokes the pipe, the meerschaum pipe. His initials are SH, and he's an Eagle. And Holmes was always described as having an aquiline profile, so that's why they made him an Eagle. So you're introduced to him in the fifth one, and he does come into the story as an old man. But the case book of Stamford Hawkmoor is actually a Grandville prequel. So it goes right back. It goes 23 years back to when he was only 45 and at the height of his powers. And it's in the dying days of the French occupation of Britain. So it ends on the very last page is the Independence Day.
We can see why it's so popular in France, Grandville, as well.
Yes. Well, it's Granville is Paris in the story,
Yeah.
It's funny, if I can nip in the afterward to Force Majeure, you said you were leaving behind the Granville world and it was too laborious to work on. So what dragged you back in?
But I got drawn back into it. But the Hawkmoor book, I wanted to make it very different. I thought, right, I've had enough of doing the Granville books. And as you know, Granville books all star Detective Inspector LeBrock. Archie LeBrock, he's not in it. Well, actually, I'll tell a lie, he's in for one panel. He's in for one panel. If you look in Granville 2, the Bête Noire, no, it's not, it's Granville Mon Amour, you'll see there's one panel where he's talking about what he did when he was in the Resistance, when he was 15, LeBrock.
Yeah.
And there's a panel of him, you see him painting graffiti on the wall. And, well, in Hawkmoor, you can see that panel, he's in the background doing that graffiti. That's the only time you see him in the book, but that's not the only difference. It's very, very different because, the Granville books are set in this imaginary Belle Epoque world, steampunk Belle Epoque world with lots of Art Nouveau design and, objects and furniture and stuff like that. And I say it's steampunk. This is set 23 years before, so there's no Art Nouveau, it's not Belle Epoque, it's very, very Victorian, and it's before the steampunk, the steam power revolution, technology revolution. So there's no steam technology, it's not steampunk, it's all like hansom cabs and cobbled streets and stuff like this. It's just very Victorian.
A few pipes and pistons to draw.
Yeah, there's none of them in. And you remember the Granville books are all computer coloured. They're all completely digitally painted, the colours in there. This isn't. It's watercolour. It's all done in watercolour, which is monotone watercolour, which is all tinted sepia to give the impression of an old photograph. So it's a very different atmosphere. Another big difference is in the Granville books, the only text is spoken word, right? Is the speech balloons. This has a lot of text in it, and it's the case book of Stamford Hawkmoor, and he narrates the book. So there's lots of these text boxes with very Victorian, sort of pseudo-Victorian descriptions, his musings and his literary pretensions and things like this in it. So it was great fun doing it, and it's very, very different.
Of course, we never got around to talking about Grandville last time around. So what was it that drove you, what inspired you to fuse this blend of steampunk and noir and satire and the anthropomorphism as a storytelling method? Where did the character LeBrock come from?
Well, you mentioned Alice. It was Alice in Sunderland before. Well, it was right after I'd finished Alice. I'd just finished it, basically, and I was working on a couple of little things. Like the Metronome graphic novel and that Naked Artist book and stuff like that. And I was clearing up. I had a big pile of reference books I've been using for Alice, and I was tidying them all up and putting them away. And I came across this book I'd had for 30 years. It was a book on this early 19th century French illustrator whose name was, what was it now? His last name was Gerard, anyway. I'm amazed I can't remember his first bit. But
he used the pen name Granville, didn't he?
Yeah, he used the pen name Granville. my God, that's just gone in my head. It's all this messing about with technology.
Yeah.
He used the pen name Grandville, and he did all these anthropomorphic pictures, illustrations, satirizing the French mores of the time. And
Yeah.
he was a big influence on John Tenniel, which is why I had him in all the Alice stuff, the Alice illustrator. I just looked at this book and I had a flip through it, and I suddenly thought, well, Grandville, that could be the nickname of Paris in a alternative world populated by animals.
Yeah.
It's the biggest city in the world, and it's nicknamed Grandville. Thought, well, how would that happen? I thought, oh, easy. Napoleon won the Napoleonic Wars, conquered everywhere else. So anyway, it came out of that. And it's
an amazing feeling when you sort of pull a thread and suddenly you think, oh yeah, and then that can one thing leads to another, and you just create this sort of creative impulse.
First time it's ever happened to me. This was usually a graphic novel for me. It takes a long time thinking about it and building up the story and everything. This one, it all came in a flash of inspiration. And after a week, I spent the next week after that thinking about it. And a week while I'm working on other stuff.
Yeah.
And then after a week, I just got a piece of paper and I wrote down the plot, like scene 1, 2, scene 2.
Yeah.
And then started typing it. I mean, typing the script straight out. And before then, I'd always laboriously done little thumbnail sketches of each page and developed the script while I'm working on these rough words and the pictures have to come at the same time, really. But this was, I just sat down and typed it all out, and I could see it unfolding in my head. I could hear the voices of the characters, and I wrote the entire script in about 5 or 6 days. It was like
you really get the sense that you thought, sorry to interrupt,
like taking dictation, it just came out,
We really get the sense that it all came to you in a blob, just the way that there are the correlations across the books and things you plant in the second or third book, which then come to fruition in force majeure. So you've obviously got this 3-dimensional 360-degree view of everything that's going on in that world. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I have the picture of it, but when I did the first one, I thought it was just a one-off.
Yeah.
By the time I reached the end of it, I thought, oh, that was great. I really enjoyed doing that. I want to read some more of these stories. So then I started working on other ideas, which took a lot longer. But Le Broc is he's partly, as I've said in the book, he's partly based on my grandma. I worked with my grandmother, but his voice just came to me, and I mean, there's one bit where I was doing in the third book. I'm doing his dinner party, and he's very much out of his depth because it's a very bourgeois dinner party, and he's leaning on the table. He's doing all the things he's not supposed to do. He doesn't know which order to use the cutlery, and And at one point, the soup arrives, and he has a spoonful. And I thought, he spits it out, and I thought that was, I was thinking I'd do that, but then. As I'm typing, he spits it out. In the script, I suddenly typed out, "Bloody hell, it's as cold as a penguin's ass." And I burst out laughing. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect it. And then over the course of this scene, this French policeman's wife, who they're having dinner with, suddenly starts flirting with Le Broc and playing footsie under the table. And I hadn't foreseen this. It just that the characters just started interacting with their own. It was great. I see you got your sound back, Andy, then eventually.
I have, yes. I had to switch to a different interface for some bizarre bloody reason. So, apologies for that. So, I mean, in terms of Grandville, it's so visually dense and detailed, all of your artwork, and not just in terms of story content, because I've got a comment on the Snowy cameo. That there is always a treat in there for people, and there is, not only is it a treat, there's always a treat for people who love the grimy, filthy undertone of violence and that aesthetic that you always have running through your work, right from the early days, right from the first Luther Arkwright comics. What inspired the Snowy cameo?
The Snowy? One of the in the first book, I started putting in these, Franco-Belge BD characters, like Beccassine appears and other characters crop up. And I thought, I won't put Tantan in, but I could put Snow in. But in the French books, it's called Milou, the dog. So in the Grandville, his name's Snowy, inverted commas, Milou.
Yeah.
It's a little known fact. Milu Snowy, the dog is male in Grandville, but he's actually female in the Tom Tam books.
Yeah.
He's not a male at all.
Yeah.
Because he named him after his girlfriend.
Right. Okay.
Anyway.
It's a backhanded compliment, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm kind of related.
Sorry,
Brian, carry on.
No, where did LeBrock come from? Well, this first week when I was writing the script, right at the beginning, I thought I was going to make him a rat, because I thought automatically I'll make him a rat. I like rats, we kept rats for ages. And then I thought, no, I want this big bruiser. I want this big working class bruiser who has, the deductive abilities of Sherlock Holmes. How would that work? That's where it came from. I thought, which animal symbolises that? The badger. Badgers are tenacious, they're tenacious, they can be ferocious. And also there's a history of badger comic stories. There's Billy Brock's School Days in Playhouse in the 50s. There's the history of in literature of badger characters saving the day. I mean, in Wind in the Willows, Badger's the most competent character in there. He's the one who sorts everything out, And Wind in the Willows is a big influence on Grandville. In fact, Ratty in Wind in the Willows is direct influence on. That's where Roderick comes from. Roderick Ratsey in the story. He's sort of mixture between Ratty and Lord Bertie Wooster. Sorry, Lord Peter Wimsey.
Yeah.
Dorothy Mayer's character. What's her name? The detective, the 30s detective. And Bertie Wooster. Yeah, that's the name. Bertie Wooster. From
you mentioned detectives.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you've got a deep. You couldn't sort of attempt these kinds of stories if you didn't have a real deep knowledge of the detective genre. I mean, obviously, you've got Sherlock Holmes represented by Hawkmoor, but I mean, what other detective stories were you sort of drawing on to, or that you just enjoy, which might have fed through into the Grandville books?
Well, I just enjoyed detective stories. I mean, when I discovered Sherlock Holmes, I was about 5. The TV used to be the babysitter, and I watched the Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes films. Watched them all when I was very young, and loved them. And when I was about 12, I read all the original books or the stories. And about that time, there was a BBC TV series on starring Douglas Wilmer, Sherlock Holmes, which was very good. And then a couple of years later, when I was about 18, I saw a pile of all the Philip Marlowe stories, all the Raymond Chandler books in an Oxfam bookshop. And I just bought them all. They were at 6pence each, and read all those and loved them. So I've always, watched detective films, watched stories, police stories.
You sort of relish the challenge of putting together the plot to make it watertight and reveal your drip feed your clues and things.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things. You see, it occurred to me when I started writing. I'd like to write a detective story. After this, I got the idea of the Grandville thing. I thought I've never written a detective story, proper detective story. So it seemed a good chance. I've never done one of the reasons I did it was I've never done an anthropomorphic story before. I liked it, that's fresh, that's a challenge. So, yeah.
There is something.
A challenge.
Sorry, go on, Tom.
I was going to say, I imagine it must be a challenge doing the anthropomorphic work, trying to get human expressions on faces. I mean, I'm thinking about it's a fantastic pun, the Crays being the gangsters, but having to draw the Crays all that time.
Having to give lobsters and crayfish human-like expressions you can read. It was very difficult. I had to cheat and actually make the mandibles make a mouth shape and things like that.
I was going to say that there is something really, really incredibly striking in artwork when you see that combination of, obviously you've got the anthropomorphic animals, but also one of your great strengths is in actually depicting the horror of violence. So the ability to actually depict badgers and foxes and dogs and various other animals engaging in acts of violence with each other and actually giving the impression of pain and the impact and the horror of violence whilst drawing them as anthropomorphic animals is, I mean, is that something that you just came naturally? I mean, you just mentioned having to cheat to cheat on the mandibles of a crayfish, but how easily does that come to you when you think, right, I'm going to draw a violent scene? Because of course we've seen the violent, because your books carry such a strong theme often of, you know, dealing with fascism and everything else. When you're actually bringing that level of visceral violence to a comic involving human characters, it carries some weight. But I don't know why. Probably actually, I suppose the reasons are probably quite obvious. I find it more emotionally impactful and horrific when it is animals dressed up as people.
Really?
Yeah.
Because these are pretty brutal books, aren't they? I mean, LeBroc's got no compunction about crossing the line and...
No. But he only does to get bad guys. You know, he's sort of heart's in the right place, really. He only does it to people who deserve it, really. I was very influenced. You were asking about the violence and the grittiness before that you saw in Outright and stuff. I think a lot of it comes from, you know, when I was 12, I watched the Morricone films as they came out. No, he's the guy who writes them. Sergio Leone dollar films as they came out. And this was at a time when, you know, loads of film and TV was full of cowboys, Hollywood cowboys, Hollywood-style cowboys. And this was doing cowboy stories, but they were all dirty and unshaven and sweaty and gritty and everything. And they looked like, you know, they were generally frightening. A lot of was all the, you know, the American cowboy films. Everybody was clean cut, you know,
the white hats.
Roy Rogers and stuff like this, Hopalong Cassidy.
Oh, so some of the extras in the Sergio Leone films who were just like on the sidewalk in front of a barber's shop or something with like rotten teeth, sweaty, you know, wonky eyes. Sergio Leone, he could really find interesting looking faces, couldn't he?
Oh, yeah. So he was a big influence on me. He was a big. I was very taken by the film. Like, whoa, you know, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know, I used to go to cinema once a week on my own. Back at that time for 2 or 3 years. 4 years, and saw what was ever on, really. But he was a brilliant director, and his sense of composition, the way he composed each scene. You look at it, you look at the composition, and it knocks you out. Incredible. One night, about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I got a big A3 pad like this of cheap paper and a marker, and I watched, what was that? It was for a few dollars more. I watched the entire film on the couch like this with the thing. And every time a new scene, changed scene, I was going and blocking in the compositional blocks, and you can see them. You can see the bang, bang, bang. I mean, that opening scene from Once Upon a Time in the West with the figures at the background, you know, I mean, brilliant.
Yeah, it's incredible. That goes on for something like 7 minutes with barely a cut and no dialogue. It's absolutely incredible.
Jack Elam. Jackie, you know, he was in lots of cowboy films, lots of American cowboy films. Great scene.
Yeah, he ended up doing a lot of comedy roles later on, didn't he? I think probably on the back of things like I think he was in the Cannonball Run as a strange doctor kind of figure, and he'd done a lot of comedy because of his facial expressions, but in that he's the perfect Sergio Leone figure, isn't he? Because he's got everything you expect to see in that kind of film, you know. Amazing. I noticed, I just pre-ordered the other day, Arrow Video releasing a 4K UHD version of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, which it's the first time I've ever thought, should I buy a bigger telly? just so I could get that up and see every single paw and every blackhead on Eli Wallach's nose.
I got the Blu-ray version, and it was incredible. It was like it was made yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, used to seeing it with grain, but it wasn't crystal clear. There's also about 8 scenes in there that aren't in the original. And the thing is, they're only about not much more than a minute long each scene. Yeah. But why did they cut them out? Because they had some of the bits of the story that didn't make sense before. Now it makes sense, you know. Yeah.
I was looking at the Arrow 4K restoration features, and I think there's something like 5 different versions of the film.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which have all existed in some way, shape, or form over the years. Yeah, it looks like a staggering pack in terms of features and versions of the film. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think there's always a temptation that I have. It's like, right, watch the longest version, but that's probably the best. But I don't think that's always actually the case. But it'd be nice to watch five different versions.
The director's cut of Apocalypse Now was terrible.
Oh my God. There's some stinking bits in that.
Yeah.
Just really, really weird little moments. I can understand why he cut the French plantation scene.
Yeah.
As a standalone, that scene I think is quite interesting, but it really, really grinds the film down to a halt.
Yeah.
It's the same with the Playboy bunnies, where they find them on the riverside, with they're all basically selling themselves for sex to try and get out of the country. But there's really, really strange little asides that Martin Sheen makes that completely alter his character. He's really sort of dedicated and morose and doom-laden in the theatrical version. And then when you watch the extended version, he's making wisecracks.
Really?
And it completely alters the context.
How long since I saw it?
It alters the context.
Then?
I don't know, but it alters the context of his character quite significantly, I think. Especially the Colonel Kurtz scene, where there are moments where he's sort of bonding with the crew of the patrol boat over their amazement at how much of a nut Kurtz is. And it's only tiny bits. It's a few seconds here, a few seconds there, glances, smiles, laughs. And it just doesn't work. It alters the perception of his character in a really, really weird way. But then I'm one of those unfortunate nerds who think that the Aliens Special Edition is the worst version of Aliens. But let's not get into Aliens. But yeah, Grandville. So you mentioned up front that Grandville was born out of you looking at all your material and all the bits and pieces that you collected for Alice in Sunderland. So
yeah, it was this book I can remember his name now, Jean-Ignace Isidore Jacquard, his name was.
There you go.
The illustrator, whose nickname was, his pen name was J.J. Grandville. Yeah.
Okay.
That's where the inspiration came from.
Right.
If anybody does a Google search for Grandville, J.J. Grandville in particular, you'll see all these fantastic anthropomorphic characters he did, hundreds of them.
So I said, we're going to do things in a weird reverse order, but let's go backwards to Alice in Sunderland. So where on earth did that come from? Because exploring the cultural history of Sunderland in that strange metatextual way and bringing in Lewis Carroll's Alice into it, where did this come from? And how did you settle on making this absolutely beautiful book?
I've always loved Alice. It was one of the childhood books, and I can't remember what age I read it. I can't remember a time when I didn't know the Tenniel illustrations from Alice. And for many years, 20 years, I thought I wouldn't mind doing something about Alice. And I didn't just want to retell the story because it's already been done lots of times. I want to do something but based on Alice or Lewis Carroll and Alice Liddell or whatever. And I've over the years I'd accumulated books, usually in second-hand shops. I'd seen books about Lewis Carroll, about Alice, and picked them up. And I didn't know how. I couldn't see how I'd do a graphic novel based on it. But then in 98, Mary, who'd been working, she worked in academia many, many years. And for a lot of years, she'd been on short-term contracts. So she'd be working at Southampton University for a year, and she'd have to commute there from Preston, where we were living. She worked in Denmark for a year and a half, so was coming back once a month. And it was she went for this interview for the job, which was using her particular set of skills at Sunderland University, and got the job. So she did it for a year to see if she liked the place and see if she got on with the colleagues, and she did. So we moved to Sunderland, because I was living in Preston, which was a big wrench because I've been in Preston for 25 years or something. Yeah, it was a bit strange. And she, I mean, first time I saw this house was when we moved in, because she'd been here during the week. I'd only come up once or twice just to visit her, but she'd been going to her house hunting, and she'd found this house, and it's very big house, but it was the only one she found. She wanted garden. I mean, she was that sick of trying to grow things in a little backyard in Preston. She wanted somewhere with a garden, and this has two. It has one out front, one out back, right in the centre. It's right in the centre of town, right on the side of the main park in town. And I could walk round it in my head. She described it, and I'd done plans and everything. But then we moved here, and it was a fixer-upper. I knew this before. I was quite prepared for the reality of it, because we'd spent sort of 20 years doing up the last house, till it was a little terraced house in the middle of Preston, but it was just, everything was nice, We moved here, and the plaster's off the wall. There's no, there's bare floorboards. There's wires hanging down. There's corners off walls. It was a mess, and I was just in shell shock for about 2 weeks.
You're not an enthusiastic DIYer.
No, I'm not. You see. But we'd actually been in the house in Preston for 20 years, and we bought it very, it had gone up in price quite a lot because all the stuff we'd done to it, and the house prices had gone up. And we actually bought this place for less than we got for the last house, this little terraced house. And this is a 4-floor terraced house.
Oh.
But it was a fixer-upper. And so we spent the first... But anyway, so I moved here, it's all this mess. And then the second week, it's not to do with all this, but now and again, about once or twice a year, Sunderland gets these... It's a port, it's on the coast, East Coast. It gets what's called sea frets, which are these dense fogs that roll in from the sea. So second week I'm here, and everywhere's covered in fog. And every 10 minutes there's this, this blowing, this foghorn going from the port. Because the port's about half a mile over there. The sea's there. We're right on the coast. So anyway, one of the reasons I did Alice was in Sunderland was, I think, get used to moving. It was a way of analysing where I've come from, looking at Sunderland's history and stuff. But anyway, I'd only been here, I think it was really second or third week. And I was walking down the main streets, and there used to be a big second-hand bookstore there. And there's a book in the window called A Town Like Alice's, and it was by a local academic called Michael Butte. And it was quite staggering because he was the very first person, and you've no idea how much Carroll has been studied over the years by scholars. He was the first one to look at his northeast roots, because he was born in Cheshire, and when he was very young, 5, I think, something like that, very young, he moved to Stockton-on-Tees, which is like about 40 minutes drive down the A1 from here. So he described himself as a child of the north, and that's when he entered his golden childhood, what he called his golden childhood. He always looked back on, he always missed it. And he used to come up to Sunderland quite a bit. His cousins lived here. His uncle and auntie lived in Whitburn, which is a little village on the northern border of Sunderland. And when he went to Oxford, when he started teaching at Oxford, he used to spend 3 months of the year up here. The Oxford summer holidays were like 6 months, big holidays. But he'd spend a couple of months with his father and his brothers and sisters in Stockton, and he'd spend the rest of the time here in Sunderland. He'd walk into town, to get buy art supplies, he'd order wine for the Oxford Union and things like that up here. And he wrote parts of Alice up here. And Michael Butte was the first person to research this. And it's been available in his diaries, which have been in the British Museum, and they've been available to look at since, I think, the 80s or something like that. I can't remember now, because it's that long since I researched this. But even after they became available, academics didn't bother looking at them. They didn't read them. They didn't find it, because he writes a lot about what he, being in Sunderland and being in Whitburn and stuff. Jabberwocky, most of that was written here.
Right.
He wrote a bit of it in Stockton, visiting his father, and then he finished the rest of it visiting his cousins here during a family game of verse making, and he wrote it for that. So I suddenly thought, well, this is it. This is, I can do a graphic novel about his roots in the northeast and in Sunderland. So I got in touch with this Michael Butte guy who came round, and he was just a mine of information, not just about Carroll, but about Sunderland history and everything. So he worked in Saudi Arabia. He was a tech engineer during the rest of his time. So when he came, he used to come back once every 3 months, something. He'd come round, we'd have a chat, But I thought, this is my way in, this is the way to do a graphic novel. And I spent a lot of time researching it. I mean, years, and read a lot of books, all in the book at the back, the bibliography.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, I can't tell this story unless I tell the story of Sunderland as well. I've got to tell the history of Sunderland, which is actually a history of Britain in microcosm.
Yeah.
Completely. And it used to be massive, Sunderland. It was a big, well-respected place at one time. In the middle of the 19th century, it was the biggest shipbuilding port in the world. There were more boats made, more ships made here than in all the other shipbuilding ports in Britain put together.
Yeah.
It's funny, only about 10 years ago now, I ended up winning this tender to design this 243-foot-long strip of pavement in the middle of Sunderland, which goes all across the new square, called the Keel Line, and it's all the ships built on the weir. Thankfully, I didn't have to set all the type, but I chose the typeface and everything. But it's punctuated by illustrations that I did that are etched into the granite flags telling the history of Sunderland. And it leads to what's only going to be opening this year, in a month or two, the Keel Bridge, which is it's a footbridge, brand new footbridge that goes over the weir. And in the middle of Sunderland, there's a chasm that goes through the middle, which the River Weir goes through. And this is going to go across the chasm. It's finished now. I don't know why. I don't know when it's opening officially, but the Keel Line leads directly onto it. So I'm looking forward to walking over that bridge.
You know what?
So Bryan, when you were...
Sorry, I was just talking to Tom earlier about Phil. My wife and I love visiting the faded glamour of once mighty port towns and seaside towns. And for whatever reason, we've always overlooked Sunderland. And now you've told us about this commission. Well, once that opens, I think we've got a new holiday plan. Is a long weekend in Sunderland, looking at all this lot and visiting.
10 years ago. It's done.
Yeah. Oh, it's done.
It's there. Yeah, it's been there. I think 2014 or 16 or something like that. It was finished.
Oh. Well, that's something for the autumn or winter then, so we can try and catch a fog at the same time. Yeah.
It used to be full of beautiful buildings, and 98% of the city centre was damaged during the Second World War because it was being a major port. Yeah. It was heavily bombed.
Yeah. Well, coming from Hull, as I'm from Hull, Phil's from Grimsby, and I think this is this explains our love of going to rainy, foggy, rundown port towns and seaside towns. So that's definitely
your DNA.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, moving inland, I really, really miss the sound of the foghorn. That was there for as a kid. There were certain things that were just there, that were just part of your life. One was hearing the foghorn. I mean, living in Hull, there were certain facts of life. Depending on where the wind was blowing, you could either smell the tannery or the fish docks. So 50% of the time, depending on whether it was a northerly or westerly wind or whatever it was, I don't know.
Seagulls, don't forget the seagulls.
Oh yeah, and also the sound, the fogs, and the sound of the foghorn when the fog was rolling up the Humber.
They're definitely hear the seagulls. You go out sometimes, you get. Really, definitely.
Yeah. So sorry, Tom, I talked over you. You were going to come in with a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Bryan, when you were sort of immersing yourself in all this local history, were you, and forming it as a book, were you sort of having conversations with publishers at that point, or was it purely a personal project?
No, in fact, it was, well, it was a personal project. It was sort of in between things in a few different ways. What did I do? It was after I'd finished the techno stuff. I did a couple of things, 2000, I think. I did a 4-issue Dead Boy Detectives story by Ed Brubaker. I think that was the first thing he did for DC. And I even wrote a 4-part, which is a whole different story. I wrote a 4-part Dead Boy Detectives thing about the same time, and they give me the okay all along. They paid me for the initial thing and everything, and it got to the end, and they said, "Oh, we're not going to be using it." And I said, "Well, why is that?" And they said, "Oh, they didn't really give a reason. Actually, it was the idea was Dead Boys investigating these murders that were linked to this faded rock star, like a Lemmy character." Basically, like a Lemmy, Ozzy Osbourne type character who'd bought. You remember in the original Sandman, this magician who captured the Sandman. Can't remember his name at the moment, but basically bought his house, and he was trying to bring back his lost youth using Macumba magic, which is this Brazilian voodoo. So I was researching. I've been to Brazil a couple of times by that point, and I discovered this Macumba magic, and I've been researching it. So he was using this to get back his lost youth. That was the idea. And anyway, DC said, "No, we're not going to be using it." I went, "Oh, probably, spent all the time doing this." I mean, they did give me a kill fee and things like that. But about a year later, Vertigo brought out this comic series written by Pete Milligan that was about this rock star regaining his youth through magic, using magic. And I thought, "Oh, that's why they..." I mean, this be a total coincidence, this will come along at the same time. They thought, "Oh, we'll use Pete Milligan's," but so we didn't get used. So I was doing other things, but it was a hard sell to get back to your original point, Grandville, because I couldn't go to a publisher's. I was trying to sell it to publishers, but it was very hard to describe. I couldn't say it was like this or like that because it wasn't like anything. I mean, since then, there's been a few things that's been inspired by it, such as the Bristol story and the Brighton graphic novel. That was directly inspired by it. I even asked me to write the introduction and do the cover, which I did. But I mean, things like Kate Charlesworth, who she got this Sensible Shoes book, this history of the lesbian movement, a biography in the history of lesbian and gay movement. I mean, you look at that; it's in the Alice in Sunderland style. But at that point, I couldn't say. It's like I couldn't describe anything. People couldn't get their head around it. So I thought, well, I'll do some pages. So I did about 20 pages, and I'm quite fortunate because Mary was at the university now. Sunderland. She was on a good wage, so she basically supported me. And I'd done 20 pages, and I thought. And I'd worked it all out. It was going to be about 320 pages long. It's a long piece of work. So I happened to be in Brighton. I don't know if you remember or heard of it. That comic convention that Des Skin organised. Did you go there?
I didn't know about it.
One day. He didn't have another one, but I was a guest there. And one morning I went down to breakfast and some newspapers lying around. And I picked up a copy of The Guardian or something. And there's an article in it about graphic novels and about a Cape graphic novel editor, Dan Franklin. And I went, he was doing Daniel Clowes and Raymond Briggs and things like that. And I thought, oh, I need to get in touch with this guy. So I phoned Cape and I made an appointment with him to go down and see him. So I got the train ticket. I booked a hotel in London for a night and went down. And I took these sample pages. It was 10 of them, 10 or 20. And he sat there in his office and he looked through them and he said, "Well, I can't see it." He said, "I can't see what you're trying to do with this," because I'd done some sample pages from different parts of the book. He just couldn't see it. So that was it. That was my big chance gone. So anyway, I tried a few other people. Nobody seemed interested. And I thought, well, I've done all this research now, and I think I'd written the script by that point. Although every time I work on these things, the script changes as you're working on them because you adapt them You make them better, polish them, But I thought, well, I'm going to have to, if I shelve this, it'll just all drain away from your head, because it's a lot to keep in your head, all this stuff. I got copious notes and things, but I thought it'll just, all the ideas I had, little background things, everything, it'll just drain away if I don't continue it. So that's what I decided to do. So then worked for the next 3 years. And with Mary supporting me. And I drew
that's primarily what you're doing for those 3 years, just working on Alice.
Yeah. I probably did, people all the time, people contacted me for sometimes commissions, pay me some money to do a sketch of the Sandman or something, or I get somebody saying, we need an illustration for this or that. I think I did some illustrations for Gwyneth Jones books, science fiction books, that she asked me to do. But that was the main thing I was working on. It took a long time, anyway. And at the end of this 3 years, I had everything copied, printed out. I'd printed it out on my printer on glossy paper. So you can imagine 300 pages. I had three, so I think there were 120 pages. These books with the plastic pages. So you put the sleeves in, put the artwork in the sleeves. You can imagine the weight of these 3 books. I'm printed on glossy paper, and they were put in the right way, so you could turn over and read them and everything. And I made another appointment with Dan Franklin. And booked a hotel room again and went down, and I sat there in the office, for ages while he just leafed through these one by one. And I could see the puzzlement on his face. and he finishes and he said, I quite like this. I quite like what it looks like and everything, but I don't understand it. He said, I'm going to have to read it first. So I said, okay. So I got the train back. I came back here. Imagine lugging these bloody 3 books around London, to Pimlico, wherever the offices are. And I got back here. I ran straight to, with all the things on a USB stick. And I went to Pronto Print. And I said, can I have a copy of this? And they did a copy. They did it in about 2 days. Bound and everything.
Oh, yeah.
In black and white. Wasn't very much, actually, but they did this big copy of it, which I then mailed to Dan, and then didn't hear anything. But the weeks dragged on and on and on and on. I went, that's it, he doesn't want it. But it was about 6 weeks later, I got a phone call from him. He said, I've finished reading it. I think it's brilliant. I want to publish it. I went, wow. So that's how I got Jonathan Cape as a publisher. And I've been with them ever since, mainly. I did all the Grandville books. They republished Bad Rats. They did all the books I've done with Mary. The last one were done by them. And the Hawkmoor is being done by them.
Did you notice a big difference working with Jonathan Cape rather than comics publishers?
Yeah, huge difference. I mean, for one thing, it's a big company, Cape is part of Penguin Random House, taken over by Penguin recently. But the Random House, they have proper PR people and stuff like this. So with Alice, they wanted me. I came down to London, had a meeting with the PR person who took me for dinner and everything. I'm not used to this, in the 90s, it was common for DC to do that, but they had better PR people, basically. So when Alice came out, there were reviews in all the quality broadsheets. I was on radio, the 4 news in the morning. They have better publicity, And we sold a lot. I think they reprinted 5 times in the first year. It was very popular, the Alice book. Sold very well. It sold 1,000 copies at the Wallstones in Sunderland. Also sold 1,000 copies in Page 45 in Nottingham. But yeah, that was the biggest difference I found. And things have changed since then, very sadly, relatively recently. The Cape did the Outright book, the last Outright book. But then Mary's fifth book, The Arm with Madness. What happened was Dan retired. Dan loved it, loves Mary's work.
So he'd been your editor all the way through?
Yeah. He described me and Mary as the spine of the Cape graphic novel line. And anyway, so Penguin took over. slag off Penguin really, but and Dan was sort of replaced, and they shrank. Instead of doing, he was doing 8 to 10 graphic novels a year. They shrank it down to about 3, and they looked at Mary's Home of Madness, and they said, "Oh well, perhaps we can do it, but we're booked up now for next 6 years." And I thought, either that or get another publisher. So we approached Self-Made Hero, who did it, and they're going to be doing Mary's next one, which I'm currently drawing over there. If we could talk about the books done with Mary, if you like. Is that not what we've not covered?
Yeah,
lovely.
We've covered everything else.
Yeah. So what are you working on with Mary at the moment?
It's actually, I don't think it's anyone's going to pinch it. It's a biography. She does a lot of biographies. It's a biography of Mary Wollstonecraft.
Okay.
Britain's first feminist, and also the mother of Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. So it's quite a very interesting subject, and it involves, French Revolution and everything. It's very Fuseli's in it. Well, everybody's in it. She knew everybody. William Blake's a character, Henry Fuseli, or Fuseli, the French call him. Who else? Wordsworth's in it, Coleridge, Joseph Priestley, a lot of these characters, people who were around at the time,
So was Daughter of Her Father's Eyes, that was the first book you did together?
Yeah.
And had you sort of casually said for years, "Oh yeah, we should do something together," or did it
exactly. No, it was after about 2010 or so. Mary became sick of all the penny pinching in what's happening at universities, which has become a lot worse since, with people being sacked, made redundant, and the people who are left having to do their jobs as well as their own, for no more money, no resources. It's been, the money's just gone out of higher education. It's been cut and cut and cut. All the, academic subjects are being dropped one by one, I mean, you can't do geography anymore, for example. What you can do there is tourism. It's all been commercialized.
Yeah.
All the language learning courses have gone. They're going, history courses. And now the English Lit courses are going. I mean, anything to do with arts. But anyway, she could see this happening at the time. It was happening to her department at the time. And she just thought, right, I'm taking her retirement. So she got out of it. Actually, since then, she's done a few academic things,
Yeah.
But, please, I'll have a top up if you want. But, I've just started talking about.
I don't get that kind of service.
Hello, Mary.
Hello, Dr. Talbot. Are you well?
Hello. Do you want to pull up a chair? Yeah, actually, pull up that chair. You could actually join us.
We're just talking about
you. Come on.
The glass, because we're just with all we got left is to talk about books we've done. I've just started talking about it, so that was good timing. Door open, and she came up to see if you wanted to top up for this aperitif. Let me just get this on the chair for because this is too.
Yeah, no worries. I really regret not having a glass of wine on me now.
That was a good coincidence. Sit there. Yeah, well, like I said, she took her retirement, and then one night shortly afterwards, we were sitting upstairs and having a glass of wine, and I said, "Hey, why don't you write?" I thought about it earlier in the day or something. I said, "Why don't you write a graphic novel? I'll draw it."
Yeah.
And she said,
"Really?
Yeah."
Are you sure?
And I said, yeah. I said biographies are quite big. They're going very popular at the moment. And I said, why don't you write about you? Because Mary had a sort of fraught relationship with her father.
Who Bryan met, of course.
Who I knew,
Oh, yeah.
Some wine, please.
Yeah, sorry. Because
it's that time of night.
we've been going out since she was started going out when she was 16. Now I was 18, so I knew her family. I knew her father very well. He terrified me, and he was like an international Joycean scholar. He was one of Britain's, if not the foremost scholar of James Joyce in Britain. He wrote a bit about Joyce in the Encyclopedia Britannica.
He did summer school on it at Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo University.
In 78, I think it was.
Yeah. And I said, why don't you do that? And well, you might say what happened to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been looking for something to do next, having retired and having been writing academic books and things. And it was just the prospect of doing a lot of reading and research on something which wasn't for work, as I saw it, which was brilliant. I found it really hard doing the autobiographical stuff, and I was trying to hide behind it by finding something else to write about as well, or instead. So I thought, James Joyce, didn't she have a daughter?
That's where Lucia came in.
And then I started reading about Lucia Joyce, and I was hooked. I was fascinated, moved, and I wanted to write about her.
Of course, for listeners, that's Daughter of a Father's Eyes. Yeah, that was that.
Yeah, and I produced something which was a bit of both. It was about my relationship with my father and her relationship with
James Joyce. Yeah. So, because
it worked well.
Mary sort of grew up in this house haunted with the ghost of James Joyce in the background all the time, because Mary's daddy used to come out with James Joyce quotes every 5 minutes, But yeah,
it's like, how sharper than a serpent's tooth is an ungrateful child. And I would say, I'm not a serpent's tooth, for example.
Yeah. So this graphic novel she wasn't sure about. She wrote it, and it became the first British graphic novel to win a major literary award. Won the Costa Biography Award in 2012, and I'm currently drawing the sixth one. Is it six?
Yeah. I was completely bitten. I knew I got the bug. I was working on the next one before the first one came out.
Yeah,
Mary, can I just ask?
Yeah.
I mean, being surrounded by comics for decades, did you have a feel for the form, or was it quite an adjustment to go from your usual academic sort of style to
Brian's first reader for a very long time? I mean, he would run scripts past me.
Okay.
So and she didn't we used to live in two different worlds. So she'd been doing academic stuff, and I'd be going to comic conventions and things. But at the house, we had visitors, and we used to go places, and so she knew Alan Moore, she'd know, Jane Delano, all these people, British comics. She met most of them at once.
Jeff Smith.
Yeah, Jeff Smith. Well, he's American, but Joe Sacco. We know these people. So she's been in this, aware of it. She didn't used to read comics very much, but if something came along, I thought, she'd be interested in that. I'll say, hey, Watchmen, read that. Mouse, read that. Persepolis, you'll enjoy this. And Mary's first script with Daughter, it was feeling away. I mean, it was like more like a play, script for a play, and it wasn't broken down to pages.
I thought he was the expert. I just provided raw material.
So it was conversation, brief descriptions of the scene in general, and sometimes you say, I'd like a picture in this scene. I can see it like this. But from the second one, which was Sally Heathcote Suffragette,
I wanted to do it all.
Yeah, so
apart from the drawing.
Apparently, Mary never decided.
I was going to say, are you a frustrated artist, Mary? Have you got?
No.
She wanted to find out about suffragettes because she didn't know anything about them. So the best way is to write a book about them. So she started to research these the suffragettes, and a second script from page one. It's like page one, panel one, scene description, text. Panel two, scene description, text. And the thing is with this Sally Heathcote was that by this point I was working on the second or third Grandville book, and I'd already started it. And I said, well, I've not actually got time to draw this one because I've just started drawing this Grandville book. So we discussed about the idea of working with someone else, and we looked at different people. And I'd known Kate Charlesworth for about 20 years by that point, having met her at conventions. I think Angoulême was the first time I met her. And I suggested her, and she did a very sort of cartoony style, but I saw this picture she'd done online of Virginia Woolf, A Room of My Own. It was a series I think The Guardian did, and she'd done this picture of Virginia Woolf in a different style, an Edwardian sort of style, something which is when the suffragettes were going on. And anyway, I asked her. She jumped at the chance, and she said, "Yeah, I'd love to do it." But when she actually drew it, it was in a different style again, but it was even more suitable to the story. I wanted to keep my hands on with the project, so what I did was I did the layouts for each page. I did each panel composition. I did the light source, the high level, everything for each panel in rough, and did all the lettering, all the speech balloons and the balloon placements and everything. And then Kate took that and then provided this beautifully finished, polished artwork from it. So it worked very well.
So that approach you took with Kate, Mary, do you use that approach with Bryan? Do you find yourself directing him?
Oh, I'm looking over his shoulder a lot.
It's a very organic process, because we live in the same house. So when Mary's writing the stories, we're talking about them at the dinner table, and at night. And we do. We actually eat at a dinner table every night. We actually have meals cooked from scratch. Usually Mary does them every night at the table with candlesticks.
Oh, lovely. That's a rare thing these days, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. No TV in the room.
Oh,
no.
Some music perhaps, but and it's a good place to discuss these things at night. But then, Mary goes off and does the script, the research, which takes a long time. Then the script, I get the script, and then we start going through it, discussing it from then. Because I
getting back to
editorial input, I'm always suggesting, I think we should change that. Perhaps that might be made clearer if you change that word there or something like that. So I'm making suggestions all the time.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to ask, when going back to Daughter of Her Father's Eyes, did either of you find that you were remembering things differently from your earlier life?
No, I'm in it briefly. Mary wrote. I just illustrated what Mary wrote. Remember?
Not really. No, not that I recall. No. I mean, when my brothers saw it later, they remembered things differently. Oh, yeah. But that's a different matter.
Different perspective altogether.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Yeah, we're always asked, did you argue when you're doing these things? But it's actually the opposite, because having spent so long working in different spheres, to be working on a project together is great. It's very organic and it's very just like ordinary everyday life.
It seems like a lovely way to spend your time.
Yeah,
pulling in the same direction rather than in different directions.
Of course, you also did Armed with Madness. Was that your last book before this current one that you're working on? Yeah. What was it? What influences your selection of what you write about, Mary? Is it just the stuff that you're passionate about?
I'm always looking for interesting subjects, in terms of graphic biography. Always women, because that's of interest to me. Looking at women's histories.
Because that continues what she was doing at university.
Yeah, I was writing a lot on language and gender when I was teaching it as well, of course.
Including a book, Language and Gender, that's been printed 3 times over the last 30 years, and it was standard text on both sides of the Atlantic. For Language and Gender. Written a lot of textbooks.
Well,
that's what influences my choice of stuff. I'm always looking, but very often I'll get out a biography of somebody and decide I can't stand them, and move on to something else.
You're reading this biography of Gertrude Bell. She comes from Washington. She came from Washington over here. She knew Lawrence of Arabia, and she actually designed the map of was it Iraq?
Modern Iraq.
It's this Victorian woman, but she was Arabist, they used to call her.
Yeah, she was a phenomenal person who spoke multiple languages, but she was pretty horrible. She wanted to be a man, basically, and she was not very pleasant with women.
Right.
She was an honorary man in the Arab world,
Right.
But
it was great.
Around the same,
want to spend 2 years with her,
Yeah, this is after Mary finished Sally Heathcote, and at the same time, I just received this book out of the blue, this big stonking book called The World That Never Was, which was a history, very well written history, academic piece of work about the origins of the anarchist movement.
Mm.
And I went, where's this come from? It just appeared on the doorstep and, well, in an envelope. And after about a month or two, I found myself looking, and I read it. I read the whole book. And Mary was having this thing, I don't like this Gertrude Bell person, I'm not going to write about that. And I said, look, read this. And there's a whole bit about the Paris Commune and everything. Louise Michel, what an incredible woman she was. She was a fearless, intelligent, incredible woman. And Mary read it and fell in love with her, I mean, that's what the third book became, which I came up with a fantastic title, The Red Virgin and the Vision of Utopia. Because they're all, she knew there was this, she had this utopian vision of what the future could be like.
Yeah.
And the utopian movement, it was quite strong then in the late 19th century, And she was
a supporter of the commune. She fought on the barricades and with sort of a rifle in one hand and bandages in the other. She was amazing. But that was a utopian episode.
It was a utopian project, the Paris Commune. It was the first workers' government, workers' collective, and all the empty houses, they gave them to homeless people. They had introduced free education for everybody, free childcare, all sorts of things.
It was in 1871.
Yeah, and they were literally massacred by the French government, who was in exile after the Franco-Prussian War, and they came back in with all the troops, and literally they just killed them all on the street. Just walk down the street shooting people. Line up against the wall, machine gunning them, the mitrailleur, the early machine guns. And the estimates vary, but they killed somewhere between 30,000.
Wow.
30.
Sorry, what was that book called?
Parisians.
The Red Virgin and the Vision of Utopia.
Yeah. 30,000 Parisians was killed on the streets by these people.
Yeah.
It's out with Dark Horse. I guess it's still in print.
I suppose, Cape published it, but Dark Horse brought out the American edition. Yeah, I think it's still in print. Yeah, it's called The Red Virgin, The Vision of Utopia.
Right.
And years later, I met the author, and he said, I asked my publisher to take a copy.
Of this thing about anarchism.
About the anarchist book, where I discovered the thing. And he'd sent it to me. He'd ask his publishers to send me a copy because he liked the Grandville stories. He's a fan of Grandville.
Well, that one looks quite collectible because it's going for quite a few bob from what I can see. So
what?
Yeah, So you've got the Red Virgin, yeah.
Oh, see, right.
Yeah. It's it seems to be going for quite a healthy price.
Really?
On the used market, yeah.
Well, if anyone wants to buy a copy, just get in touch through my website.
Well, funny enough, I was supposed to be talking to James last night, but things came up, and I'm going to chat to James next week, so I'll see if you got any left in stock. Yeah.
Well, he won't have me. I've got them here. I've got copies here.
Yeah. Well, I'll get onto the website and take a look. So, Hawkmoor is out. When's it out, Brian? November
officially here. Yeah. Although we're hoping to get some advance copies will arrive in time for the Lakes Festival. In which case, I get Cape to send some up there.
Lovely.
Because we've got a table this year at Lakes. We don't every year, but we've actually got a table.
Yeah, we'll have copies of the Red Virgin now.
Yeah, we'll have copies of Red Virgin there. If it's interesting.
Well, you know what? We may make an effort to try and get to the Lakes Festival.
Okay. Grant Morrison's coming this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Not too far from us, the Lakes. Up the A65, past Skipton, and we're on our way. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll take a look at that. And, of course, the book that you're currently working on about Mary Wollstonecraft, when do you think that will be hitting shelves?
I don't know, but my literary agent, who's now our literary agent, is currently negotiating the contract with Self-Made Heroes going to publish it. They've said they want to publish it, so they're talking about the contract now.
Yeah, so they've not started talking about the schedule
Yet.
No.
Lovely. Well, you know what? Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us, and thank you for suffering through some technical problems as well, Bryan, which just always seems to be the case when we do things online, unfortunately.
Seemed to work okay last time, didn't it?
Yeah, but you know what? Thinking about it, I'm thinking we might have done Zoom last time as well.
We did do Zoom last time.
Yeah, it's my fault for setting it up through Riverside. Yeah, my apologies for that and wasting 15 minutes of your time. And no idea what happened with my IT at this side and with me losing the audio. But yeah, thanks again. And lovely to meet you too as well, Mary. That's a really wonderful surprise and a lovely, lovely bonus. So again, thank you both very much, and thanks Tom for coming back as well. And Tom and I will get together, I think, separately to actually talk about some of these books in a little bit more detail as well. But absolutely great to talk to you again, Bryan.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much. Lovely to see you both.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
There. Bloody thing. It was a button on the bottom of the screen, wasn't it? As is always the way. I've had so much grief when logging onto Discord to play online roleplay games with a mate. And I've just got a Linux laptop.
Yeah.
Do you know Framework? Completely ethical, modular, plug-in.
I don't, but you know, I have been looking at some of this stuff because my PC is knackered and I don't want to upgrade to... I don't want to spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds on a PC just to get Windows 11.
Yeah.
So I have been looking a little bit at Linux and thinking, will all the stuff I need work on Linux?
It's a
on
bit
a
of
laptop?
faff.
Yeah.
If you're not a command line interface geek, then go for something like Ubuntu, which is completely graphic user interface.
Yeah.
But I used to be such a Mac fanboy. It's embarrassing.
You know what?
Such a fanboy. Now, for the past 15 years, it's been like, no, I hate their walled garden approach. So my phone is a Fairphone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've looked at those. Yeah.
And I love doing this to people. It's like, does your phone have Fairphone on the box? No. Then child slave labour is used to build it. Literally, all cobalt is mined with child slave labour in the DNC Congo.
Right.
And so, you know, I've got a Queen t-shirt on. I've usually got a Green Party t-shirt on. It's like being an eco mad bastard.
Yeah.
I can't be using Apple, walled gardens, Google, Microsoft.
Yeah.
And so a Framework laptop is the equivalent of a Fairphone phone.
Right, okay.
It's extremely ethical. When you come to assemble it, it's got QR codes that go to videos that said, here's how you do this bit.
Fantastic.
It's gorgeous. And I've got real geeks who know how to do command line interfaces, should I need to fall back on that.
Yeah,
but I never have.
I might pick your brains about that another time because I really do need to do something about my technology because my PC was great in 2017, but it's falling to bits now and it's actually blue screening. It blue screened right in the middle of a recording on Sunday when I was talking to someone in San Diego, which was really annoying. But I've been looking at all sorts. And when I first started podcasting back in 2019, a mate of mine, he's an audio-visual engineer. So I'm a nerd. I'm a geek, but I'm not a nerd. Or which way around is that? I don't know. I've always built my own PCs, but I'm not massively advanced with this stuff because really building a PC is like an extension of wiring a plug, isn't it? You plug things in the right place, you do a bit of fault diagnosis, and you get it running. Anything beyond that, no good. So I said to him, what kind of equipment should I put together just for running a basic podcast? And because he's an audio-visual engineer, he said, you've had a redundancy payout, get a MacBook. So I got a MacBook Pro, and ever since I've been kicking myself because I fucking hate Mac OS. I can't stand it. Work gave me an iPhone. I can't stand the iPhone. I can only cope with one operating system at a time for my phone. And one operating system at a time for PC stroke laptop.
Yeah.
I can't do both, and I just reject. My brain rejects everything Apple, unfortunately, because it's so, as you say, it's walled off, and you can't do anything with it. You do it their way or not at all, and I can't stand that.
It's user friendly initially, but then and the 30% cut from the work that all the developers do on the App Store.
Yeah.
And the first iPad, I used to, I cut my teeth training on the Mac. So, your Photoshop, your Quark Express, and that's literally, this will come out when we start the actual interview. You're not recording already, or is this going to be on it?
Oh, I think it automatically started recording, but
whatever.
You know what? Don't worry about it.
Cut it together how you want.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, whenever we do this podcast, we end up going off down rabbit holes, and sometimes we have enormous digressions, and today we just started with a digression, which isn't entirely unusual. So, all this will probably stay in, so don't worry about it, because I'm sure there are other people out there like me who are really, really cheesed off with Windows, Microsoft, Apple, and it's actually interesting to hear about alternatives. But I think I might pick your brains a little bit more about that another time.
Framework for laptop, Fairphone for computers. But yes, I was a Mac trainer, and the very first WYSIWYG HTML editor came out back in the day. Adobe Dreamweaver Macromedia Dreamweaver before Adobe bought it. And so I'm playing around with it, and you've got to learn the software yourself before you can teach it. And the secret, of course, is to just be one chapter ahead of the people that you're teaching.
Yeah.
So I was looking at it and thinking, okay, I've got my head around this now. When I taught Photoshop, I used to get a photo and I'd put a copy stain on it, I'd tear it, I'd crumple it up, and I'd scan it in, and I'd say, you see that? We're going to repair that and make it absolutely perfect. And so every time I taught, my ethos was, you teach from personal experience. And you say, look, I used to do this day in and day out, here's what you need to know. And people would come up to me, I'd teach them Quark Express, the desktop publishing software, and they'd say, my God, nobody ever taught me the concept of master pages. What you've taught me will save me a day's worth of work every single week.
Yeah.
So I was looking at the HTML editors, and I was like, all right, what do I need? Content. I need to create and run my own website. And, well, what subject? It needs to be something I'm passionate enough about to update it every 2 weeks for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Bryan Talbot.
Right, so this is a nice segue into why we're here and why we're talking, because of course this is going into our second Bryan Talbot episode, and Tom and I recorded with Bryan last week. But going back to when I first started thinking about doing Luther Arkwright on the podcast, and thought, right, how could I potentially contact Bryan Talbot? That led very, very quickly to us having a conversation, because you run his social media, you run his website. So welcome, James, to Derry and Toms. It's lovely to have you here. We've talked in text form, going back and forth about a couple of bits and pieces, and of course you very kindly gave me Bryan's email details, so I was able to contact Bryan directly. But that's essentially how we got here. But I'm really fascinated to find out how you got there. So whenever we have a brand new guest or co-host on the podcast, first thing I always ask is, what is your background with things like genre fiction? We've already found out that you're a big computer guy and that you were into Bryan Talbot. But how did you get into genre fiction back in the day?
I remember the day, and I'm glad you've got the same amount of grey hair, at least on the chin. I'm losing on that front. My dad brought home a copy of 2000 AD, issue 1. I was like 8 years old, and he went, son, I think you'll like this. It's like, amazing. I got into it, and so massive 2000 AD fan. I've always been science fiction and fantasy book fan. I reckon I've read a paperback every one a week for 40 years, since the age of 16, and I'm 56 now. And so from that, got into role-play games and your old classic D&D. Well, I'll tell a lie. We started off on Tunnels and Trolls because it was cheap.
Yeah.
We used to...
Was that the old Puffin book? Yeah.
No, those are the fighting fantasy books. This was a paperback you could buy for like £3.50 from Flying Buffalo, the publishers.
And right. I thought Puffin had published it in the UK. This is just my memory playing tricks.
They might have published it after I did it, because I'm talking about 1985 when I got into it.
Yeah.
And we had this fake, supercilious attitude to D&D. Because Tunnels and Trolls, it was like a 60-page floppy paperback. and you could run it straight out of that book.
Yeah.
And D&D, you got all these big complicated books, and we pretended, that's too complicated. We don't bother with that. We play something nice and simple, never having touched a D&D book in our lives. But it was cheap. You could get your hands on it and you could play it straight away. And then from that, I got into D&D proper, got into all of the magazines. And so there was the Imagine magazine, I think it was 1984, when Bryan's work was on the cover, because he did I've got this up on the website, the entire thing. It was such a long search to get a good quality scan of it. It was the Traveller scenario, and it was set in the Arkwright universe from 00 going off, and Wotan came, and he created a pyramid parallel transport device as the plot device. We did a 2-page comic as the introduction that you could give to the people if you were running the game and say, here, read this, and it got people into character. And so I looked at it and I thought, wow, that's amazing. Looked at the back, and there was the advert for the famous exploding Prout version. By that I mean the binding was so bad that the glue on the spine always gave away and the pages just came out. But I sent off for it and got it. Then, years later, realised, my God, he drew Nemesis, the Warlock, in the Gothic Empire, the one that I really, no disrespect to any other Nemesis artist, but Bryan has spoiled me for everybody else. And I was like, oh my God, that's Bryan Talbot. So when I started to do his website, when I thought, I need to do Bryan's website, this is also mentioned in his biography. I thought, I need to get in touch with him. All right, try email, found his email address, and I sent an email saying, Bryan Talbot is Jesus Christ incarnate. Now I've got your attention, Bryan. Can I volunteer to do your website? And I just imagine, when I have a visual image of somebody thinking, for some reason, it's always take a drag on a fag. And I imagine him going, who the hell is this weirdo? I get a free website out of it. Knock yourself out, sunshine. And so it's how I cut my teeth. It's how I learned everything. For 25, the website is now 29 years old. I've got the Usenet links where I announced the launch of it in 1996. And
that's actually a healthy age for a web page, isn't it?
I predate Google. I rank, for, like I say, 29 years. Part of my job interview technique has been to say to the person interviewing me, go to Google, type in Bryan Talbot. Yeah, that's me. I rank above BBC, Guardian and Wikipedia because I outdate them. And everybody who does an article on Bryan Talbot links into me. And, my son's left the room. I said I'd mention this specifically to embarrass him. The picture, I'm doing it over my shoulder. Up there, it's arguable, I think it's certain, that I wouldn't have got married and I wouldn't have had my kids if I hadn't been doing the Bryan Talbot website. I did my usual thing of, look, I know website, because I leveraged it. I went out from computer training and, how to use Adobe, Dreamweaver and Photoshop to create the website, because I thought, if I train the grunts that do the work, I get this much money. If I go to the level above and train the MD on the entire internet consultancy and search engine marketing and search engine optimization, I charge this much money. So that's what I did. I leveraged myself up the sort of career path. And so I was doing internet consultancy. From that, I got a job as a freelancer a couple of times a week at what is now Birmingham City University. And it was a course that they put on for women returners to work. And it was so popular that they had to have some of the lectures off campus. It's like 100 yards over the road, but it was in this commercial building that had a suitable room full of computers. And so I'd go in there once a week and it was like, right, ladies, here's how to market yourself online. And here's how to be effective, how to do marketing, here's how to give the people what they want. And I did all my usual stuff of nobody cares as much about your website as you. The hardest thing is to get somebody to come back for the second time. But when was the last time you yourself bought something off a website on the first visit? Never. You create a short list and then you go back to them. And the easiest thing is to annoy somebody and they go, yeah, off the short list. So you've got to be found, yes. But search engine ranking is only ever a proxy. It's never the be all and end all. But you get people chasing it above everything else. So I'm doing all of this, and in the same building, there was a young lady working. And my policy, very firm policy, was always make friends with the receptionist. They're the most powerful person in the building. They decide if you physically get in the building and if they're answering the phone calls, if your phone call gets put through. And so I made friends with a lady working on reception, and this girl walks past, and I said, "Who's that?" after she'd gone. And she went, "Why do you want to know?" I said, "Why do you think?" And so she engineered an introduction. One thing led to another. The receptionist was at our wedding, and then my kids obviously came about as a result.
Yeah.
And so I say to them, you have impeccable geek heritage, pedigree. If it wasn't for me volunteering to do Brian's website, you wouldn't be here.
It's remarkable how the pieces fall, isn't it? You know,
Looking back.
yeah, you could talk about fate and destiny and accidents and chaos theory and everything else, but I don't know, the way we end up where we end up doing what we're doing, you know, it's sometimes you look back on it and think, how on earth did I get to where I am now? And how did all these pieces fall into place? You know, I mean, you can also spend a lot of time thinking, you know, with thinking if things had gone slightly differently, I might have been elsewhere or doing other things. But you know what? Coincidence, relationships, all these different things, they're all so important, aren't they? And I think that provided that you end up somewhere where you're happy with your lot, you're happy with what you're doing, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. If you can look back on that and be happy with it, brilliant.
Well, I've got an amazing thing. And I always say to people, I'm absolutely enthralled, I'm amazed that I get to do Brian's website because I got to meet my hero. There's in one of the panels, that's the full page panel from the very first Adventures of Luther Arkwright, when Harry and Luther are walking through the maze, and he turns around and he says, you know, there are reasons, the meaning of life is a loaded question. In asking it, you are assuming that there is a meaning. The only reason for man's existence are chemical ones. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so deep.
Yeah.
And I completely lost the thread then. I was going to go on to another point from that.
I'm sure it'll come back to you, but you know, chaos theory has sent you off down a slightly different track. So you've discovered Brian, you're doing his website, you've been doing it for 29 years, which is...
That was it. Sorry. And from that, I got to meet my hero. And his Weltanschauung, he changed the lens through which I look at the world.
Yeah.
And that quotes, the only reasons for man's existence are chemical ones. I was like, my God, that's so deep, when I was, you know, an undergraduate and thinking about the universe and life and everything, and getting deeply affected by the video To the Wall by Pink Floyd. My God, that blows your mind. But yeah, he changed the way I look at the world. And because I volunteered to do the website, I got to meet him, and I wrote up the time I first met him on the website. And it's just amazing to meet your hero, somebody who's changed the way that you look at the world, who's your biggest fan. You know, the only other equivalent would be to meet Freddie and Brian from Queen.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's not going to happen for one or two obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And I did get to see Queen when Freddie was in them at Wembley the year after they played at Live Aid.
Right.
And I'm just so glad of that. And I took the entire family to see Queen when Adam Lambert was playing with them a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Somebody to love, even if it isn't by Freddie. I mean, Adam Lambert, he isn't Freddie. He doesn't try to be Freddie. And I'm going to go off this tangent in a second, but the one thing I wanted to say was some smart-ass journalist comes up to Brian May and says, surely you're rich enough. Why the hell are you still touring? And he shut them down in 7 words. He just said, these songs deserve to be sung live. Go away. And it's an amazing experience. But to meet your hero, and I did have a story about Neil Gaiman, which I'm not going to relate now because of recent events. It cast him in a good light, and it's like, my God, the people who had Neil as their hero and the recent stuff that's come out, you know, the people that were, my son included, that had J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter as the reason. He read the entire series back to back, sort of 5 or 6 times. He'd finish it and go, right, I'm starting again.
Yeah.
And part of his love of reading was because of that. And then to have your hero come out and...
Yeah, it must be colossally disappointing, you know. I mean, really, we just want nice things in life, don't we, without finding out people are arseholes, by and large, you know. But there is a flip side to that, to be honest, James, because as somebody who... I mean, I read The Sandman comics donkeys years ago when my mate was into them. But as someone who has a very close friend who was Neil Gaiman mad and was constantly banging on at me to read American Gods, I don't get nagged to do it anymore. So that's actually done me a big favour. And similarly with Harry Potter, I mean, my wife loves Harry Potter. She loves the films. I've suffered through the films. It's not really my cup of tea. You know, kind of fantastic films about how brilliant boarding school is. It's not really, you know. If I watch a film about boarding school, I'm going to watch If, you know, and that's probably what I'm going to watch. So it's not really my cup of tea. Unfortunately, we don't have to have conversations about J.K. Rowling anymore either. So that's a big bonus. So there is a flip side to this. When people's heroes get brought down a few pegs, the people who've been nagged to read their stuff actually get a break from it all. Oh, yeah. So, but, I mean, you know, Bryan is... I've only met him digitally twice now, and you know what? What a fucking top bloke. So, I mean, I discover Bryan Talbot. My first exposure to Bryan Talbot is 2000 AD. Yeah. And I was already reading Nemesis the Warlock. I mean, I love Kevin O'Neill's art. But the Gothic Empire art, I think there's one panel of art where the Terminators massacre an army of Gothic Empire soldiers, and there was a different, slightly more visceral level of brutality to the violence. And that kind of blew my mind. Also, Nemesis's sidekick, what's she called? Forgot what she's called already. Purity, yeah, but at one point she's in fishnets. And fishnets. That's
an awakening for any young lad, isn't it?
Yeah, so 12-year-old me was like, oh, hello.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. Yeah, so I told Bryan this, he was also partially responsible for my sexual awakening at the age of 12 and moving me on from Sarah Jane Smith and things like that to a hot comic babe in fishnets. So I discovered, and that was actually, I didn't discover Bryan, 2000 AD, because a neighbour's 2000 AD got put through our front door by accident. And it was the episode, it's the prog, where there's a Judge Dredd story drawn by Ron Smith with a talking donkey set in the cursed earth and an army of black spiders.
Yes.
The name of the story, I can't remember the name of the story, but that was the one I read. And so I'm reading that thinking, maybe 10 years old, thinking, what the fuck am I reading? This is absolutely incredible. I also remember it had the Starship Enterprise on the cover for some reason, in the bottom corner. There must have been some promotion going on.
Tie-in.
Yeah. So that's how I discovered Bryan. But for people perhaps who haven't read Luther Arkwright or haven't read 2000 AD, because of course we have a lot of listeners in the USA, for example, a lot of listeners in Europe, how would you describe Bryan and his work to the uninitiated?
God, have you got a week? For me, one of the key things is that everything in it is the work of one mind. So you have a consummate storyteller who's doing the script, the plot, the lettering, the inking, the colouring, the whole thing. To the point, and I don't think this is over the top, I'm aware that some people might think it, but he thinks about sightlines. He thinks about the placement of adverts. So, you know, he says he's seen Marvel Comics where there's been an advert, a full-page advert, and it's ruined the flow. Yeah. So the reveal of the villain was supposed to be when you turn the page, except now the reveal of the villain is on the top right of the page when you're over here, and so you can see it. You know, he thinks about the sightlines. Victoria, Princess Victoria in Heart of Empire. I remember he kept saying that all the way through, from the start, you were looking up at her. You were in a subservient, inferior position. And then suddenly, when the big reveal and the change happens and she becomes a more sympathetic character, you look equally. And you're looking from her point of view. And who else thinks about that? But those are the master strokes of a master work. It's the storytelling. It's the fact that he scripts it out. It's the beginning, middle, and end. And there's the peaks, and then there's the interlude, and then there's the amazing reveals. It's somebody who knows the comics medium to such an extent that he can literally teach it. I mean, I don't know if you know about the Heart of Empire CD-ROM. Well, I call it the director's cut nowadays.
I don't know.
After I met him for the first couple of times. We sort of sitting there in the bar afterwards and, hearing some of the stories about comics people, because, again, he's written a book about this, some of the stories that they have. They are typically solitary, lonely people hunched over a drawing board. So when they go out to conventions, they let rip. Yeah. Some of the stories, and so I was sitting there listening to them, and it goes quiet. He says, how can we make money out of answering the question, where do you get your ideas from? And I went, well, all right then, how about this? A CD-ROM, that dates it straight away. But for the Heart of Empire, let's have the pencils of the entire thing. Then you click on a link and you go and see the inked version of the same page. Then you click on a link and you go to the colour version of the page. And he went, that's amazing. I could do annotations as well. And so it ended up with, I think, 60,000 words of annotations. Yeah. Every single page in a linear fashion. So you could go page 1, pencils, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And from any pencils page, the equivalent inks page, to the equivalent colours page. And from any of those pages to the relevant annotations page. And I did it optimised for a 640 by 480 screen, so it's tiny.
That's old school, isn't it? That's
my
standards,
God, dating it.
Yeah.
But I sell it from the website still as a digital download. Yeah. So, distribute electrons, not atoms, and save on distribution costs. But yeah, there's 250,000 links, because you can read 258 pages in pencils or inks or colours, and then annotations, and then there's individual pages and call outs to references. There's the dramatis personae list of all of the characters, and it's just intense. It was an 18 months fever dream of every evening and weekend. Then for some strange reason I was single when I was creating this. I had the time. And I just sat down and did it. And my point of view was, you need a browser and a computer. So it was in flat file HTML. So you literally double clicked on it, and whatever computer you're on went, you want me to open this in your favourite browser? And it just worked. And it still works to this day on any computer platform. Yeah. But it was absolute labour of love. And I got to work creatively with my hero. Yeah. We sold 200-300 of them, but for anybody else, for Dark Horse, it was like, oh, we've got this weird, unusual, unique artifact. If you want it, you can buy it. Yeah. And I'll maybe sell, 2, 3, 4 a year.
So it's actually still available?
Oh, it's still available off the website. It's absolute labour of love. It's the entirety. And we use that concept for a few of the Grandville novels.
Right, okay.
Bryan would go, Anne, you see this panel? Well, you see this old image from an old master at the time of the Renaissance. Can you see how it's reflected and how I took the inspiration from that? Yeah. And we did that as well, but not nearly in as much detail as the Heart of Empire. Oh my God, like I say, 18 months of evenings and weekends. It was intense as hell, and I'm still proud of it. Yeah. And, classic, when he was doing Heart of Empire, I came up to him and went, Bryan, in that specific brummy, I'm going to wheedle a favour out of your voice. You know how you put people that you know into your comics and you use real people and you stick them in the background? He went, yes, what do you want? Can you stick me in Heart of Empire somewhere? And he went, oh yeah, okay. And I'm actually a background character in Heart of Empire.
Tell me which page and which panel, and I'll put an image of it on the page when we upload this.
I'll find it for you now. And what's even better is it's during the big rebellion in the main square at the culmination of the entire story. And I am an anti-fascist, anti-royalist, revolutionary, standing on the base of a sort of 40-foot high plaster of Paris Statue of Liberty model, haranguing the crowd to rebel. Yeah. And I used to work at a comic shop in Birmingham when I was a student. And the joy of walking into this comic shop, getting a comic off the shelf, literally, and going, you see that? Look, you see? Completely childish. Yeah.
But that's a dream come true, isn't it?
Oh, all of the people that worked in there were total geeks. And I'm still in touch with one guy, Richard, who does... I can't remember the name of the thing. I'm sorry, Richard, if you're listening to this and I'm not able to plug Adventure Comics for Boys, something like that. And he still does the blog. But yeah, it was amazing feeling to be a character in the comic.
Yeah, fabulous. Well, I must say, it's a long time since I bought a CD-ROM, but I'm going to have to get on the website and pick one up.
Tell me.
What else is available on the website?
Artwork. It's the only place to do original artwork, unless you meet Bryan at a convention and you get him to sign it there and then. And I love how we sell a piece of artwork and I've got a standing agreement. I've got a 10% cut for commission. And it's like, great, that's what's fair. It's what your managers, pop groups get.
Yeah.
And so I'll sort it out on PayPal. I'll send Bryan the stuff. And he says, don't forget to ask the person who bought it what dedication they want on their artwork.
Yeah.
And his mental state has already transitioned is from, I drew it, but they bought it, they own it, it's theirs.
Yeah.
What do they want on their artwork? And it's like style, class, as ever.
Well, I know there are a few people who listen to this who buy original comic art. Well, myself included, funnily enough. I've got a few bits and pieces. I remember it was a real treat. The first person who ever bought me comic art, the first comic art I ever actually owned was my friend Sarah got me a panel from Colin McNeil painted panel from 2000 AD from Judge Dredd, and I've got it framed in the living room. And then when I was collecting the Dredd volumes, the complete case files, Judge Dredd case files, I finally got to something like volume 30 odd, and it had that story in it. And I was reading it, I was like, holy shit, that panel of art is above my head on my wall. And it was, that was a nice feeling. That was a nice feeling. Otherwise, I've bought a few bits and bobs from people like Simon Davis and Boo Cook, places like Thought Bubble and a Sci-Fi Weekender in Wales. But it's nice to have this stuff in your hands, isn't it? Sarah, my friend, she's a big fan of all this. She bought some David Roach Anderson artwork last year from Thought Bubble, and it is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. So for those people who are into the original comic art, you can actually buy Bryan Talbot panels of art from bryantalbot.com. Now, I did actually buy something from bryantalbot.com a few years ago. So you must have actually sorted out that transaction, but I bought a signed copy of the first Luther Arkwright role-playing game.
Ah!
Yeah. So now, as a gamer, there have been 2 Luther Arkwright RPGs, haven't there?
They have.
The one for, it was RuneQuest 6, what's it called now? Mithras.
Yes.
What do you think of them?
I've never been able to talk my regular Thursday night gaming group into playing anything but D&D. It's the monopoly of mental space that is D&D. And people equate the entirety of RPGs to D&D.
Yeah.
I thought the games were obviously gorgeously illustrated because they just took Bryan's images. Yeah. But they, I loved the systems. Was it the first one? The scenario where Luther is about to meet the Tsar of Russia, and he realizes that one of the guards is an actual disruptor agent, and he does this mental plant, and he implants paranoia, and he gets him to go for his gun, and then he takes control of one of the Kaiser's guards and gets him to shoot him. And they role-played the entire scenario out in the system.
Yeah.
And he says, so what the guy playing Luther does now, he uses this power and he rolls the dice and he succeeds. Oh, of course he succeeds because we're illustrating it with the comic panels. But they did the entire thing, and it's like, nice touch to actually do a sequence of adventure of actions from the comic and translate it into the game and show how it works.
Yeah. I think the first one used a stripped-down version of BRP, didn't it? From memory. You talked earlier on about getting a Bryan Talbot thing where the glue lasted about 30 seconds. It started coming apart. First Luther Arkwright RPG. I got halfway through it and the binding started to disintegrate. It was classic perils of softback RPG books from a certain period in time. I think the publisher Mongoose was publishing a lot at the same time. That was just the glue was just disintegrating. There must have been a really bad batch of binding glue for books at a certain period in British RPG history. God knows why. Very strange. Very strange.
Found it. I found the cover. I'll give you the URL. And the sad thing is that this is still in a design, an interface of the website from 20 years ago. Right. And there is just so much content. Yeah. The thought of it's still file HTML. I still fire up Dreamweaver to edit it.
Yeah, really. Wow.
And the thought of importing it into something like WordPress or a proper content management system, and it's like, yes, but it's over 1,000 pages. If I was being paid to do that, I'd give a quote of 4 weeks minimum.
Yeah,
And to do that in the spare time, since you've had kids, what spare time?
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is the one where I'm on the cover. I have one line of dialogue in the comic, and it is, Jesus!
Well, what I'll do is I'll pull my copy of Heart of Empire off the shelf, and I'll find the right page, and I'll take a decent quality photograph of it. It's funny though you're mentioning 640 by 480, because I remember getting a 3DFX Voodoo card back in the day. At the first time I could ever use 800 by 600, and it was like the world had changed.
It is.
Moving to 800 by 600 resolution, the world had changed entirely.
And when you can get more than 256 colours.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, the checkered publishing history, the same comic book store that I used to work in, that I went in and got the Heart of Empire issue 8 off the shelf.
Yeah.
When Luther, the very first Arkwright, when it was published, and I got the one from the Imagine magazine, and I sent off for it, and I got that. It's like, this is amazing. The artwork is so good. The story, oh my God, I want more. How does the story end? And so it took years, but then finally, issue 2, not Goethe Dammerung, but issue 2 of the bound graphic novels came out.
Yeah.
And then no issue 3. The story didn't finish. And I waited 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Then Valkyrie Press started to publish it in individual comic format, about the same size as a US comic import. And so issue 1, 2, 3, those are the ones from the first graphic novel. Issues 4, 5, 6, those are from the second graphic novel. 7, 8, 9 came out. And it's like, oh my God, I finally get to see how this story ends.
Yeah.
And so I used to go into the comic book store and just step outside, stand on the doorstep and read them, except when the final one, issue 9, came out. And I got the original artwork as a gift from Bryan for this.
Wonderful.
And I got it, and I'm like, oh my God. I think it was my second year at university. And I carried it home like it's the Holy Grail. And I walk into my student flat, and it's like, if anybody disturbs me while I'm reading this, I will hurt you.
Yeah.
And they went, don't you mean killers? I went, no, you won't be around to experience the pain. I'll hurt you. Do not, unless it's a matter of life and death. And even if it is a matter of life and death, it depends whose life and death. I've been waiting 9 years for this story to end. And just, inhaled it. And it was just so, I don't know whether it was because of do your big fandoms in life get set when you're a kid and impressionable and then get fixed for life? Because if so, Bryan Talbot and Queen fixed right in the formative years. But, tangent, bringing in Queen again. When he gives his talk on the anthropomorphic tradition in comics, and he then announced, I'm going to do an anthropomorphic comic, Grandville, steampunk detective noir thriller. And I'm like, well, it's Bryan's, I'm going to buy it anyway. But my initial thought was, anthropomorphic, isn't that for kids? And then in his talk, he gives the history of it and how it's been used for satire and for political commentary. And it's like, absolutely not for kids. And so, I got the first Grandville, and in the first 2 pages, it's like, oh my God. And because I do the website, it'll send me stuff in advance of publication. 2-3 years. I might have already been sent the PDF of Hawkmoor.
Oh, very much looking forward to that. Oh
my God. Yeah. The entire world of Grandville, and to see his mentor 20 years previously. Again, lost my thread. Hawkmoor.
It's all right. We don't know how lucky we are these days. Yeah, we don't know how lucky we are these days, where the days of scratching around looking for individual comics or finding comic shops that might stock them or that might get them in for you, all those days are in the past. And there are lots and lots of problems with commercial considerations these days and other bits and pieces. But the fact that you can access stuff much more easily, and you can access this creativity and these pieces of art much more easily, and the fact that you can get the entire Grandville collection in a beautiful hardback volume for 20-something pounds, we don't know how lucky we are.
I don't know. I kind of think I realise how lucky we are because, finding your own people. I've admitted this to Bryan, and I have paid my penance for it. But at one stage, I was so desperate for somebody to talk to about Luther Arkwright that I photocopied the entire damn thing and posted it to a mate.
Yeah.
And because of that, do you know the famous panel where it's the outline of two people's heads and it's some flagstones and it makes the skull? I had not seen that in the original because it was a printing that was really dark.
Right.
And it completely washed out the contrast. And the photocopying changed the contrast. And I went, there's a skull there and I've never seen that before. I must immediately sit down and reread everything of Bryan's instantly.
Yeah.
And it was those hidden trompe l'oeil. I'd never know if I pronounced that correctly. The trick of the eye in French. But yeah, I was so desperate for anybody to talk to about Bryan's work that I photocopied the entirety of Arkwright. And so part of doing the website was to make it the single repository, the place for news, the place that anybody could find their people, their tribe, and could find other fans. And the single most moving story, The Tale of One Bad Rat. And if I can just show, I can't put it, I've got a load of cables. I've got the picture from The Tale of One Bad Rat of Helen sitting on atop of the mountain looking down on Derwent Water with the rat in her imagination to her side, signed by Bryan up there.
Oh, beautiful.
But somebody emailed me and they said, yeah, I was also a victim of childhood sexual abuse. And while I was in the hospital recovering, this nurse came in. And she came in every day for a week. And she had a hand behind her back, clearly hiding something. And she'd say, I've got something for you. Tell me if you're ready for it. And the first 8, 9, 10 times, I was just too hurt and abused and recovering. And I'd just tell her to piss off. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Finally, my curiosity got the better of me. And I said, okay, show me what it is. And the nurse whips out a copy of The Tale of One Bad Rat.
Oh.
This girl emailed me and said, Bryan's story about recovering from childhood sexual abuse helped me recover from childhood sexual abuse. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I went, I'm just the web guy. I'm going to pass this on to Bryan.
Yeah.
But to get an email like that, I'm finding it emotional even now.
Well, it's the value of art, isn't it? You know, it's just incredible. It speaks to people. And I think I was only recording a couple of days ago and we were talking about a completely different book, and certainly a book that you wouldn't necessarily think for a second that would provoke these kind of reactions, but entirely depending on where you are in life and what your recent experiences have been and where your current frame of mind is. Fiction, art, creativity, anything at all, film, comics, books, novels, if it hits you at the right place at the right time in your life, the impact can be profound, and that's a perfect example, you know. And it's a beautiful example.
Yeah, it made it, 30 years. It'll be 30 years next year of doing the website. Just amazing. But like I say, I can prove I've been running the website for 29 years because back in the day, the Usenet network, that's where I first plugged it. I went on to, alt.comics.2000 AD and said, hey, if you're a fan of Bryan's, go and check out this fan page. I've just put it together.
Yeah.
And it's before I even had the domain name, it was on the free space that you used to get with your dial-up hosting deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so sad. But yes, the other analogy I was going to draw about getting into anthropomorphism. And I thought, I'm not going to like this. Within 2 pages, I'm hooked. And it's how I used to find buying a new Queen album. I remember when I was 14, Greatest Hits was advertised on the telly, and it's like, oh my God! And my parents went, took note of that, got me the album for Christmas. And I played it through and learnt it. And then in the album notes, they said, Bohemian Rhapsody was from this, it was from A Day at the Opera, A Night at the Opera, and Somebody to Love was from A Day at the Races. And I went, all right, went and got all of the individual albums and started to listen to them in chronological order. And I'll never forget, the first time I played it, it was like, what the hell is this? They've jumped genres, they sound completely different, but within a couple of repeated listenings, you were addicted. It was Queen at their majestic best, jumping into a genre, mastering it, playing with it, and then going on to something else. But each time, the first time I played the album, it was like, my God, what is this? I'm a fan of these people. But within 2 listens, it was like, oh, yes.
Yeah, I've got to say, I think jazz lost me a little bit. I'm a Queen fan. I like early Queen. Jazz, I found quite hard work. I think, was it jazz? Yeah, jazz. I found that one. It was a little bit too disco-y for me.
Yeah. And they did have that whole no synths thing, and then they went, "Yeah, we're going to use synths now."
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah. It's funny on the whole anthropomorphism thing. I don't think I had that like instinct to reject it because years and years and years ago, and I can't remember where I got it from. I got a couple of collections of I think it was, I can't remember if it was French or Belgian, but there was a series, Canada, the Duck Detective. And it is very dark, very noir, and there is a drunk, he smokes. It's got a really, really fantastic visual style to it, where when the duck is drunk and smoking cigarettes, it looks sleazy as fuck. He's wearing a greasy raincoat. If you can get hold of any Canada comics, they're well worth a look. I think they're from the 70s. But yeah, so I had been exposed to anthropomorphic animal fiction before that was sort of gritty and sleazy and blackly funny. But it was such a long time ago. So when I saw I was doing Grandville, I was like, oh, I'll have a bit of that. Yeah, I'll have a bit of that quite happily. And to anybody who is listening who is maybe slightly resistant to the idea of an anthropomorphized badger detective, don't be put off because they're violent, gritty, dark.
Yeah.
It's got all the usual, I say the usual themes, it's got lots of Bryan's familiar themes like comments on empire and fascism, and yeah, just terrific stuff. And the Grandville volume that's currently out, for the price that it costs, it is an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge book. You could beat someone to death with it, quite apart from anything else. You could beat Nazis to death with it. How about that? Yeah. So
I think that a lot of my politics was definitely involved and influenced by Bryan. Back in the 80s, I was out shopping a couple of weeks ago, and I met a guy on the street, and I was like, "Dude, Salman, how's it going?" And I had my son with me, and he turns around and says, "Your dad's one of the good ones." Back in the 80s and the 90s, we were active together in the anti-Nazi League in Birmingham.
Nice.
And yeah, I called it my street fighting years.
Yeah.
And to have somebody turn around to your son and say, "Your dad, anti-fascist, anti-racist." I mean, my kid's a mixed race.
Yeah.
I'm pretty anti-racist anyway.
Yeah.
But to have somebody go, "He has one of the good ones." Another thing, this is an unrelated anecdote, but there's one day, Birmingham City Centre, we're doing an anti-Nazi League stall because the BNP had been active in the area.
Yeah.
And we're giving out leaflets. And you know what it's like. You tailor the message that you're saying to the audience that's hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be a couple of, 16 or 18-year-old punks. And they're like, "Yeah, fucking Nazis. We've got to deny them the streets. We've got to physically confront them. We've got to stop these scum." Little old lady comes up. And it's like, so what we're doing is we're raising awareness and we're making it clear that the Nazis are not welcome here.
Yeah.
And she went, "Really? Back in the 30s, I used to glass the cunts."
Yeah. You know what? These are the things that make me proud to live in Bradford in the same way that I'm sure you're proud to live in Birmingham. And, some of my friends are proud to live in Liverpool because there's a strong rejection of this stuff. A few years ago, I was I won't say what the job was, but it involved working with West Yorkshire Police to a degree. And some of the West Yorkshire Police colleagues were gearing up for a big BNP march. And it barely got off the ground. It barely got off the ground because, and you know what, even not that long ago, when we had the horrific events in Southport, which prompted meatheads and morons to get out on the streets. In Hull, my hometown, there was some bother there, which largely consisted of people in England football shirts raiding shoe shops and Lush and stealing lots of things and getting caught on camera. We were sitting in the centre of Bradford eating fish and chips, looking around. It was a beautiful sunny day, and my mates were texting me about what was going on in Hull City Centre, and I was looking around at the people around us and how diverse it was and how peaceful it was, and it was, you know, it was like fucking Shangri-La compared to being in Hull that day. And because you get the people who I have friends who will still have the unfortunate reaction of saying, even they might be coming over to Bradford for a drink. Oh, how about we come over to Bradistan? And it gets my back right up, and they don't mean anything from it. It's purely from ignorance, but it does wind me up. And you know, I fucking love living in Bradford. The reason I love living in Bradford so much, it's like Hull but more diverse. You know.
Well, I've got a beef with Leicester. They don't know it, but they might become an ethnic majority city before Birmingham does.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, I've started thinking I'd love to become one of those speakers that companies get in for, you know, the away days that they do, and they sort of speak over lunch or something of how to be an anti-racist ally.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you can't speak of the experience of experiencing racism because you know, you might have, but you're white. You don't really experience racism. However, from the point of view of being an anti-racist ally, how to, you know, literally stand behind them and say, well, if you're going to interview anybody, Mr. TV News, you interview this person who's actually experiencing it. But if you want to be an ally, right, now you're in my ballpark. And I came up with an alliterative phrase of visible, vehement, vocal. You've got to be there. And I think most people who are white have got this experience of people sidling up to you when there's no black people in the room and going a racist rant. And they come out with it because they're assuming that because you're white, you share their views. I don't know if you've seen the whole bloody putting up the flags on the lampposts thing.
You know, it's not just lampposts. We've been up and down the motorway and some air roads recently for one reason or another, visiting my dad. And every fucking bridge we're driving under has got a cross of St. George hanging from it. And it's like, which sad bastard has got the time and inclination to just go, is it because 1 in 10 drivers will drive past and go, hooray? I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's so fucking pathetic.
Yeah.
You know?
And the problem we have with it is, no, we're not ashamed of our national flag. We're ashamed of its appropriation by the racist right. We're ashamed that every time anybody is shown wearing it, they're a sweaty, gammon-faced skinhead kicking somebody's head in. That's what we're ashamed of. We're proud of our flag. It's just that the racists have taken it over.
It's funny,
so
isn't
the people who aren't racist have said, let's not use it until we've reclaimed it.
It's only 10, 15 years ago that there was like a sense that it had been reclaimed, but it really doesn't take long for it to change again, does it? But at the end of the day, this is why I like artists and creative people and writers and creators and storytellers like Bryan Talbot, because they speak to me on a visceral, instinctive level, and, you know, it's something to love.
I mean, the anti-fascist themes are overt, but also subtle. I mean, especially in the final Arkwright novel, with the entire fascist parallels and people behind the scenes pulling the strings. But just, you know, the subtle digs at Thatcherism in the original, the very first Luther Arkwright series. And it was passionate. Yeah, a lot of I don't think my politics was informed. I think I was born anti-fascist. I just had a visceral reaction to it from day one. But knowing there's other people out, again, bringing your people together in a tribe, knowing that you're not isolated, that the racist idiots are the minority, they're just very loud, and because they're loud, they get on the news a lot. But yeah, every single anti-fascist, anti-racist protest I've been to, as counter-demonstrators have outnumbered the racists minimum of 5 to 1. Minimum. And there was one recently, and I didn't get a chance to come up and speak, but I was making my speech in my head, and it was like, look, I've been out on the streets since the 80s. I was here campaigning against them when they were the BNP. We beat them, and they had to dissolve. Then they came back as the EDL. We beat them, and they had to dissolve. And now they're coming back as Reform. We beat them every time. We're still here. They're the ones that get chased off the streets, and they're the ones who have to dissolve and create a new organisation that's got no taint from the previous one.
Yeah.
But we beat them every time. And it's a message that has to be rammed home. Every generation needs to relearn it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the non-cunts will always outnumber the cunts, won't they? So, no matter how loud they get. But anyway,
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? On that sweary note, thank you, James, for coming and popping into Derry and Toms to talk about Bryan Talbot, to talk about his work, about your passion for it, about your passion for other things, and the work that you do on bryantalbot.com, which has been going 29 years and it's still there, and there's all sorts of things people can pick up through it.
Well, thanks for having me. It's so rare to be interviewed as the web monkey.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you're making all this stuff available, and you're keeping the flag flying for this stuff, which is brilliant. So again. Thanks for hooking me up with Bryan in the first place, and thanks for coming and talking to us.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, dude.
Many thanks to Bryan, Mary, James, and especially Tom for propping up the ship when technology railed against us. The casebook of Stamford Hawkmoor is out in the UK in early November, and you can get all your Bryan Talbot news at bryan-talbot.com. We had quite a few issues with technology on this show, so apologies for any sound quality issues. It's high time I upgraded my rig, and I had been looking at options only to get distracted by looking up the 1980s 8-bit computer game of Nemesis the Warlock that used Bryan's version of Nemesis on the splash screen and for the central character, and I was reminded of the great Rob Hubbard's amazing score. Then, because rabbit holes go deep, I came across a remix by O2 that dates back to the year 2000, so it's 25 years old at this point. O2 hasn't uploaded any remixes to the Remix 64 website since 2014, but I hope they're still out there in their native Sweden, and don't mind that I've bunged it at the end, just in case this episode wasn't long enough already. This is our last podcast before we head into spooky season, so next up we'll have some ghostly shenanigans to talk about, or just filthy slugs. Or both, maybe. But in the meantime, I'll just take time to thank our patrons. First, those without tier: Anthony Piconti, Tim Cardos, Dave Dempster, and Sebastian Weetabix. And our chaos engineers: Ed Von Stout, Andrew Clark, Andrew Cicluna, Andrew Spong, Andrew Van Ness, Anthony Porter, Benjamin Fletcher, Ben Hagar, Brandon Mays, Dan Charnley, Dave Griffiths, Dave Voxman, Gabriel Laycock, Harvey Faulkner-Aston, Jim Kirkland, Jim Jupp, John W. Lays, Jules Lawrence, Mal Pertwee, Matt Saltz, Michael Hopwood, Nick Hopkinson, Paul McRandall, PJ Cooper, Rex Ossius Nusquam, Scott Butler, Simon Perrins, and, new to the Donplass, Steve Braun. Welcome aboard, Steve. And of course, thanks to our crafty Jugaderos, Adrian Tchaikovsky, Alexander Harris, Chris Sharp, Christian Hundal, Dave F., James Connell, Graham Holden, Kevin Williams, Liam Turner, Loz, Mark Buckley, Mark Hewlett, Mark Taylor, Matthew Broom, Murray Palmer, Ofer Ziv, Sean Twist, Toby White, and Taylor Lavery. And eternal thanks to our patron demons: Action Edmonds, Alistair Davison, Andy Darby, Brian Henderson, David Lee, Derek Clunan, Fred Quiche, Gareth Wilson, Glenn Sawyer, Greg Faulkner, Gwen Barlow, Ian Stead, Janie Stim, Jason Vogel, Joachim Sund, Joe Monty, Johan Jarper, Jonathan Sharp, Lee Gary, Liam Jones, Marius Latauskas, Mark Hebden, Miles Reed-Labato, Neil Burton, Paul Hillary, Randall Gatlin, Steve Round, Tom Murphy, Tone Malazzo, the OG patron Norman Beresford, and last, but of course, never least, Robert McMillan. Okay, enough of my blather. Don't forget you can follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky with the handle @BreakfastRuins. You can email us at breakfastruins@outlook.com. The webpage is breakfastintheruins.com. BITR Breakfast in the Ruins Radio is live on Radio Garden or via the web player at breakfastintheruinsradio.blogspot.com. We have our Patreon page too, of course, and there are a few extra odds and sods on there. But until next time, wherever you are in the world, whatever's going on your turf, take care, stay safe, and we will meet again soon on the Moonbeam Roads.